You open your window one morning, and your fence is gone. In its place stands a fresh post driven a yard closer to your house. Yesterday it was your land. Today it isn't. Linda lived in a quiet Brooklyn suburb. A small house, flower beds along the walkway, a wooden fence around the yard. This was her pride. Her husband had built that fence 20 years ago when their children were still little. Weathered, slightly crooked in places but strong and steady, it was her fence. A symbol of stability and family memory. After her husband passed away, Linda was left alone. Her home and yard became the center of her life. Every board, every bush carried meaning. That's why what happened in the spring struck her so deeply. A new neighbor moved into the long empty house next door, Mr. Harris. A man in his early 50s, sharp voice, the walk of someone used to being in charge. He immediately made himself known. Hired workers cut down old trees, repaved the yard. At first Linda thought, at least the house won't stay abandoned anymore. But joy soon turned into unease. One morning Harris walked up to her gate. Your fence isn't in the right place. I checked the old maps. The boundary runs closer to your house. Linda froze. In 20 years no one had ever questioned her lot. She had all the documents, maps with stamps and signatures. But Harris spoke with such certainty that for a second she doubted herself. Sorry, but that's impossible. This fence has stood here since we bought the house, she answered. Harris smirked. Then it stood wrong for 20 years. I'll fix it. The next morning she woke to loud hammering. Outside, Harris's workers were dismantling her fence. Boards lay scattered like broken pieces of her life. Linda rushed out. What are you doing? That's my property. This is my land, Harris replied coolly. I've got the plan. His calmness was scarier than shouting. The workers didn't even pause. Linda felt her words had no weight. She called the city inspector. He came, looked, and shrugged. The documents contradict each other. I can't decide. You'll have to take it to court. The word struck like a sentence. A new fence rose quickly. Taller, darker, colder, and closer to her home. Linda felt like a part of her yard had been stolen. Harris even parked his car on the new strip of land, deliberately demonstrating his claim. From her window, Linda felt humiliated. That evening she spread papers across her kitchen table. Property deed, plot map, old photos of her children playing by the fence. She traced the line with her finger and whispered, "Here. It has always been here." Later she called her friend, the neighbor on the other side. The friend confirmed. The fence had always stood there. She even brought an old photo showing it clearly. And then for the first time Linda admitted to herself, if I don't stop him now, he'll take everything. I'll have to go to court. She opened her laptop and went to the small claims court website. Maximum claim, $5,000. She calculated the damage and restoration at $2,500. Her fingers trembled, but she filled in the form. Plaintiff Linda M. Defendant Harris J. Claim $2,500 for damages and fence restoration. When she clicked submit, Linda felt she had crossed an invisible line. This was no longer a neighborhood spat. This was a fight for her home. The hearing day came. Linda arrived early. The small courtroom felt more like a library. Wooden benches, low ceiling, sharp smell of old paper. Yellowed posters with rules hung on the walls. Her heartbeat was so loud she could hear it in her ears. Harris walked in with confidence like it was a business meeting. Dark suit, folder in hand, smug smile. He sat as though he owned the place. The clerk called their case. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s with a cold gaze, took her seat. Case of Linda M. versus Harris J. Linda stood, knees shaking. Harris spoke first. Your Honor, the fence was wrong from the start. I bought the property recently but checked the maps. My neighbor's land encroaches on mine. I only corrected the mistake. He slid forward an old, unsigned plan with faint lines. Anger burned away Linda's fear. She stood. Your Honor, I have the official deed, a certified plan, and photographs 20 years old. The fence has always stood at the boundary. The judge examined her papers. Silence fell. Mr. Harris, the judge asked, do you have confirmation from the land office? I have this plan, he insisted. Unsigned, unstamped, the judge noted. Not legally valid. Harris raised his voice. Everyone knows the fence was wrong. Not everyone, said Mrs. Carter, Linda's neighbor. She stood with a photo in her hands. I've lived here 22 years. The fence has always been there. I saw Linda's husband build it. Harris snapped. You're just defending your friend. I'm telling the truth, she shot back, her voice trembling but firm. Order. The judge raised her hand. Linda showed a photo of her children playing by the fence, the boundary line clear in the background. She handed it to the judge. This picture is 20 years old, the judge said. Mr. Harris, why did this fence never cause dispute for decades but suddenly does now? Harris faltered. I just wanted to follow the law. By law, you should have gone to court first, not demolish someone else's property, the judge cut in sharply. Murmurs filled the room. For the first time, Linda felt momentum shift her way. Harris tried again. Her documents could be forged. Linda snapped. Forged? These papers are in the city's office. My children grew up by this fence. You can't just show up and take everything. The judge's gavel struck. Enough. The plaintiff's claims are backed by certified documents and witness testimony. The defendant relies only on an unofficial copy. The words hit like thunder. 40 minutes later, the hearing ended. The decision will be announced tomorrow, the judge said. Linda left the courtroom heart-pounding. For the first time in weeks, she felt hope. The next morning dragged endlessly. Linda sat at her kitchen table, tea growing cold, hands trembling. Every few minutes she refreshed her inbox. Finally, the email. Court decision. She opened it and read aloud, barely believing. The court rules. The defendant must pay the plaintiff $2,500 and restore the fence to its original place. Tears filled her eyes. This was more than victory. It was validation. Proof that an ordinary woman could defend her home and family's memory. Harris tried to argue, but the ruling stood. A week later, the bailiff arrived, drew up papers. Harris was given a deadline to comply. He signed with a scowl, shot Linda a hateful glance, and left. Workers returned to the street. This time they tore down Harris's new fence and rebuilt it where it had stood for 20 years. Linda watched from her window, each board returning like a piece of her life being restored. Neighbors stepped outside, whispering, some offering quiet support. Good for you, Linda. Not everyone would have had the courage. For the first time in weeks, she smiled with relief. Now I want to ask you, watching this, what would you do? Would you say, it's not worth the fight, let him take it? Or would you stand your ground like Linda? We often think court is scary, slow, expensive. The truth is, it's a tool. A tool that works if you prepare. Linda didn't win because of her garden. She won because she gathered documents, photos, witnesses. Think. How many times have you given up when someone wronged you? How many times did you tell yourself, it's not worth it? This story is about not letting arrogance erase your truth, keeping documents, photos, contracts, and fighting when your rights are crossed. At the end, the judge told Linda, you were right not to stay silent. Those words stayed with her forever. So let me ask you, friends, if tomorrow your neighbor, landlord, or seller overstepped, would you fight? Or let them take part of your life? Share in the comments. Your story might help someone else choose. Because tomorrow anyone could be in Linda's shoes.